The massive black bear reared up on its hind legs, towering nearly 8 feet tall, its razor-sharp claws glinting in the morning sunlight. Between the predator and the helpless human lay only one defender, a white Dogo Argentino, muscles tensed like coiled springs, ready to sacrifice everything. What happened next would defy every instinct of survival. The dog didn't retreat. He didn't cower. Instead, he did something so unexpected, so terrifying in its calculated precision, that even the bear hesitated. The forest fell silent, except for the sound of heavy breathing and the crack of breaking branches. In that moment, predator became prey, and a bond forged in loyalty would be tested by the most primal force of nature. This wasn't just a fight for survival. This was something far more profound, a testament to the unbreakable connection between man and his most faithful companion. The bear's roar echoed through the trees, but it was too late. The dogo had already made his move, and what followed would leave witnesses speechless for years to come.
Meet Carlos, a 34-year-old park ranger from the remote mountains of Patagonia, Argentina. For 12 years, he had patrolled these wilderness areas alone. His only companion, a magnificent Dogo Argentino named Thunder. Carlos wasn't wealthy. His modest salary barely covered the essentials, and his small cabin had no electricity or running water. What Carlos lacked in material possessions, he made up for in dedication. He had rescued Thunder as a puppy from an illegal fighting ring, nursing the traumatized animal back to health with patience and love. The two had become inseparable, partners in protecting one of South America's most dangerous wilderness areas. Before we continue this incredible story, I want to know, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. And if this story grips you the way it gripped everyone who witnessed it, please subscribe to Wind Echo Untold. We bring you the most extraordinary true stories that mainstream media won't tell. Stories of courage, loyalty, and the unbreakable bonds between humans and animals. Thunder wasn't just a pet. He was Carlos's early warning system, his backup in emergencies, and often his only social contact for weeks at a time. The dog had been trained not for combat, but for tracking, search and rescue, and wildlife deterrence. His powerful build and fearless nature made him perfect for the job. But nothing, absolutely nothing had prepared either of them for what they would face on that crisp October morning in 2023. What started as a routine patrol would become a life or death encounter that would test every fiber of Thunder's training, instinct, and loyalty. For 3 months, the locals had whispered about El Diablo Negro, the Black Devil. This wasn't just any bear. This was a 400-pound male black bear with a documented history of aggression that had turned him into a legend of terror throughout the region. The bear had already mauled 2 hikers, leaving one permanently disabled and another requiring over 200 stitches. Experienced hunters who had tracked jaguars and mountain lions refused to pursue this particular beast. Park officials had received dozens of reports, but every attempt to capture or relocate the animal had failed spectacularly. What made this bear truly dangerous wasn't just his size, it was his intelligence. Unlike typical black bears that avoided human contact, El Diablo Negro had learned to associate humans with easy food sources. He had broken into campsites, destroyed cabins, and showed absolutely no fear of humans or their typical deterrents. Professional wildlife control officers had tried everything: tranquilizer darts that seemed to barely slow him down, noisemakers that he completely ignored, and even attempts to trap him that resulted in destroyed equipment and an even angrier predator. The bear had developed an almost supernatural ability to avoid human attempts at control while becoming increasingly bold in his attacks. The local indigenous community spoke of him in hushed tones, claiming he was no ordinary animal, but a spirit of vengeance. Whether supernatural or simply a perfectly evolved predator, one thing was certain: El Diablo Negro had claimed this territory as his own, and he would kill to defend it. October 15th, 2023, started like any other day for Carlos and Thunder. They set out at dawn to check the mountain trails, looking for signs of illegal hunting and ensuring tourist safety. The autumn air was crisp, and Thunder seemed unusually alert, his ears constantly swiveling and his nose working overtime. Around 10 a.m., they reached a remote section of trail that wound through dense forest. Carlos was examining what appeared to be illegal snare traps when Thunder's entire demeanor changed. The dog's body went rigid, his hackles rose, and a low, rumbling growl emerged from deep in his chest, a sound Carlos had never heard before. That's when Carlos saw him. 50 yards away, partially concealed behind a cluster of trees, stood the most massive black bear he had ever encountered. The animal wasn't foraging or simply passing through. He was watching them with the calculated patience of a predator sizing up his prey. Carlos's radio was back at the truck, a quarter-mile down the trail. His bear spray was in his pack, but the bear was too far away for it to be effective. More terrifyingly, between Carlos and the escape route to his vehicle stood 400 pounds of pure predatory instinct. Thunder positioned himself between Carlos and the bear, every muscle in his 90-pound frame coiled for action, but they both knew the mathematics of this encounter. No domestic dog, no matter how brave or well-trained, could physically overpower a fully grown black bear. Yet Thunder showed no intention of backing down. What happened next defied everything Carlos knew about animal behavior and everything wildlife experts thought they understood about the Dogo Argentino breed. Instead of the expected aggressive charge or defensive posture, Thunder began to move in a pattern that seemed almost ritualistic. The dog started circling the bear at a distance of about 20 feet, maintaining constant eye contact but never directly approaching. His movements were fluid, almost dance-like, and he began to emit a series of sounds that weren't quite barks, weren't quite howls, but something entirely unique. The bear, clearly puzzled by this behavior, began to mirror Thunder's movements. Instead of charging or retreating, the massive predator found himself drawn into this strange, hypnotic dance. Carlos watched in amazement as his dog seemed to be communicating with the bear in some primal language that transcended species. Thunder's strategy became clear as minutes passed. He wasn't trying to fight the bear, he was trying to confuse and disorient it. The dog's movements became increasingly erratic, leading the bear in wider and wider circles, always keeping the predator's attention focused away from Carlos. But the most remarkable aspect of Thunder's strategy was psychological. The dog somehow understood that this bear, despite his reputation for aggression, was operating on territorial instinct rather than predatory hunger. Thunder began to display submission signals mixed with territorial challenges, creating a cognitive dissonance in the bear's mind. The forest seemed to hold its breath as this unprecedented interspecies negotiation continued. Carlos realized he was witnessing something that had probably never been documented. A domestic dog using pure intelligence and psychological manipulation to neutralize a predator 10 times his size. After nearly 20 minutes of this strange dance, the situation reached its breaking point. The bear, growing frustrated and confused by Thunder's tactics, suddenly reared up on his hind legs and let out a roar that shook the forest canopy. This was the moment Thunder had been preparing for. As the bear committed to his intimidation display, the dog executed a maneuver that defied belief. Instead of retreating or attacking, Thunder suddenly went completely still and began to emit the most bone-chilling sound Carlos had ever heard. It wasn't a bark, wasn't a howl, wasn't anything in the normal canine vocabulary. It was a sound that seemed to come from somewhere deep and ancient in the dog's genetic memory. A sound that spoke of pack hunts, of coordinated attacks, of a dozen invisible allies closing in from all directions. The effect on the bear was immediate and terrifying.
The massive predator's confident posture crumbled as some primal instinct recognized a threat pattern that predated human civilization. The bear's head swiveled frantically, searching for the pack members that Thunder's sounds suggested were surrounding him. Thunder maintained this psychological assault for nearly 5 minutes, his sounds growing more complex and coordinated, as if he were actually communicating with phantom pack members. The bear, now thoroughly convinced he was surrounded by an entire pack of predators, began to back away. But Thunder wasn't finished. In the final, most terrifying display of intelligence Carlos had ever witnessed, the dog began to advance on the retreating bear, his sounds now mimicking the coordinated attack calls of wild hunting packs. The bear, his nerve completely broken, turned and fled into the forest with a speed that seemed impossible for such a massive animal.
As the forest returned to its normal sounds and the adrenaline began to fade, Carlos knelt beside Thunder, his hands shaking as he ran them through his companion's fur. The dog was panting heavily, but showed no signs of stress or trauma. If anything, he seemed proud of his performance. In that moment, Carlos understood something profound about the bond between human and dog. Thunder hadn't just saved his life. He had demonstrated a level of intelligence, loyalty, and strategic thinking that challenged everything science thought it knew about canine capabilities. This wasn't just instinct or training. This was love made manifest in the most dangerous possible circumstances. Thunder had faced down a predator that could have killed him with a single swipe, not because he thought he could win, but because he couldn't bear the thought of losing his human companion. What did you think of this incredible true story? Have you ever witnessed a bond between human and animal that defied explanation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if stories like this one move you, please subscribe to Wind Echo Untold. We're committed to sharing the extraordinary true stories of courage, intelligence, and loyalty that remind us why the bond between humans and animals is one of the most powerful forces on Earth. Thunder and Carlos continue their patrols in the Patagonian wilderness, their bond strengthened by that terrifying morning when intelligence triumphed over brute force and loyalty proved stronger than fear.